Human nature. We use it all the time to describe what people see as essential human characteristics. War is human nature. Sin is human nature. Evil is human nature. It's such a fundamental question, searching for what human nature means, what it means to be human. And in our current environmental, social, political, and psychological climate, I can't think of a more vital question to ask. What is human nature? One thing has become quite clear to sociologists, biologists, and anthropologists who have studied human nature extensively. Human nature is incredibly varied. Like, people have been arguing about human nature for centuries, and in a way, they're all a little bit right. Human nature debates often dive into the sort of nature versus nurture argument. Is it up to environment? Is it up to biology? Some mix of both, and to what extent? These are the sort of questions that we grapple with. I mean, obviously we have certain shared drives related to food, sex, security, play, and social status. We can see certain instincts, like cry, herd instinct, aggression, disgust, and fear, which is malleable. By the way, I should know, I've been afraid of birds since I was like 8 because I was chased by a group of vultures, and birds are like constantly attacking my head, so I really don't like birds. But anyway, there's so much nuance and variety within all of these attributes. How much of it is learned, and how much is innate? People say that anarchism, which is a philosophy that I ascribe to, is idealistic and unrealistic. Sure, they say, a world without coercion and violence and state power and capitalist exploitation may sound good on paper, but people are X and Y and Z, so it can't work. Let's examine that, drawing from Peter Gelderus's Anarchy Works. Are humans naturally selfish? I mean, sure, everyone could be a little bit self-interested at times, yet everyone also has a sense of the needs of those around them. I mean, humans wouldn't be where they are today without generosity. Without it, no parent would give their child food without payment. No child would help their parent retire without payment. Nobody would donate to charities. Nobody would volunteer to help friends or strangers. Even now, in our capitalist hellscape where sharing is technically a disadvantage, generosity continues. The false history we're told is that before money, primitive barter systems were ineffective. But time after time, humans have developed gift economies across the globe. In this system, if people have more than they need of anything, they give it away. They don't assign value, they don't count debts. Everything you don't use personally can be given as a gift to someone else. And by giving more gifts, you inspire more generosity and strengthen the friendships that keep you swimming in gifts too. Many gift economies lasted for thousands of years and proved much more effective at enabling all the participants to meet their needs. One such society is the Semai of Malay, which still exists today. Semai economic exchanges are freely given and received. In fact, it was taboo for members of Semai society to calculate the value of gifts given or received. Other commonly held rules of etiquette included the duty to share whatever they had that they did not immediately need, and the duty to share with guests and anyone who asked. It was punan, or taboo, not to share or to refuse a request, but it was also taboo to ask for more than someone could give. Imagine what examples of sharing might develop outside the restrictive bounds of state and capital. Patriarchy is one of the most ancient forms of oppression. Male domination over women has existed for centuries. Surely, this is natural? Not so. Firstly, many societies have had more than just two gender categories, and they also allow gender transition. Prehistoric art depicts people of no gender and people of ambiguous gender. Gender was fluid. The entire notion of two fixed genders is one particularly insidious lie. I mean, even if we're just talking about sex, many people are born intersex. Our biology exists on a fluid continuum too, and our binary conception of gender is incredibly unnatural. Patriarchy has always been resisted by queer folks in groups like Fierce, religious reformers like Anne Hutchinson, and countless feminists across the globe. Of course, patriarchy hasn't even existed everywhere. There have been non-patriarchal societies like the Mbuti with their gender fluidity, pre-colonial Igbo with their autonomous spheres of life, and the Haudenosaunee with their matrilineal egalitarian society. Colonial brainwashing and patriarchal notions of gender and society have ravaged us and built exploitative systems of domination. We need to start questioning what we've been told is natural, recognize the lies that cement power, and begin fighting back. naturally warlike? If humans were as naturally warlike as Hobbes and Freud assumed, and in such desperate need of government to keep them under control, humanity wouldn't even have reached as far as to create governments. We would have died out without reproducing. Anarchists have long argued that war is the result of the state. But this guy, Lawrence Keeley, he wanted to prove that war was inevitable and not the fault of our social structures. In his study, War Before Civilization, he sampled many stateless societies, many of whom had engaged in war, and most of whom had defended against war. Some fled war, and fewer had never encountered it. He wanted to show that people were warlike, but the title of his study contradicted itself. He was studying societies after the waves of colonization, enslavement, genocide, invasion, disease, and more. And yet, many of these people, who were peaceful for centuries, had only the choice between starving to death and invading their neighbors, thanks to colonization. Peace threatens the state. Peace too is natural, but the institutions of power in our civilization, the media, academia, government, capital, and religions, have exaggerated the prevalence of war and understated the possibility for peace, because they profit from it, and attempts to create a more peaceful society threaten their very existence. War is not inevitable. It's a consequence of certain socio-political and economic arrangements, which are ours to shape. Conclusion. From Locke to Mencius to Aristotle to Kropotkin to slave masters to capitalists, everyone has their own take on human nature, one that is decidedly political. I believe that, above all else, we are the product of our environment. I don't agree that we are inherently bad or good. I feel that limits the conversation of our potential. And what's interesting about this conversation is that the human mind has never had the power to tell us that it has captured the whole truth. We must continue to inquire. We could shape ourselves and slowly our culture. We have the power to do that. Humans have demonstrated capacities for change and diversity of such breadth that would arguably violate the concept of a fixed human nature. I'd say open your heart, expand your mind and sense of self. Mutual Aid by Peter Kropotkin argues that the tendency of people to help one another reciprocally in a spirit of solidarity was a greater factor in human evolution than competition. Still, the belief persists that humans are naturally selfish, competitive, warlike, and male-dominated. This belief is founded upon a misrepresentation of so-called primitive peoples as brutal, and of the state as a necessary, pacifying force. Capitalism, while exploiting and rewarding certain negative attributes of humanity, has never kept everyone fed, existed without gross inequality, or not devastated the environment. These days, we should say that we are primitive, as this system stunts our ability to cooperate and organize. Human nature, as Peter Childress describes, is a cultural value, an idealized and normalized mythology that justifies the way a society is organized. Western civilization devotes an immense amount of resources to social control, policing, and cultural production to reinforce capitalist values. The Western idea of human nature functions as a part of this social control, discouraging rebellion against authority. We are taught from childhood that without authority, human life would descend into chaos. Question the narrative. Our relationships extend far beyond our bodies and our minds. We live in communities, depend on ecosystems, need relationships for emotional health. Without a society that incentivized competition and exploitation, our self-interest would overlap with the interests of our community and environment. Our relationships with both humans and nature are fundamental to us. We don't need to dominate or be dominated. Let's build our lives and our communities accordingly. Anarchy works.